Hey, welcome back, YouTube. Today we're going to be discussing the Way of Winter scenario here in Once Human. We are now getting to the end of everybody completing this scenario. I know ours is just about to flip over, and there's a few that are in front of us, a few that are behind us, and people that are just now starting it. So I put this video together primarily to kind of discuss my feeling of how Way of Winter went for me, my true feelings on the content that they gave us, the mechanics that they added in, the new systems that they incorporated. I want to discuss what I found to be absolutely useless, what could be useful, and things that I would love to see incorporated into other scenarios in general. I hope you sit back. Remember, if there's anything you would like to explain as well, put it into comments. I would love to chat with you guys. I answer everybody's comment. So it would be great to have people to discuss what you feel about Way of Winter, whether you disagree with me or agree with me. These things are absolutely fine. And as always, I'll see you on the other side. Wait a second. Do you hear that? What? Oh, crap. Subscribe. So the first thing we want to discuss here is going to be the phases. In terms of the phases, you obviously had to kill Chaos Weavers a certain amount of time. I literally only was able to kill 2 Chaos Weavers. And for me, that is just taking away a huge part of the gameplay that needs to be done. Now, I realize not everyone can be there on schedule to fight these Chaos Weavers, and they spawn around the map at certain times, and people want to get those bonuses to get the Star Crown, but finding a way to integrate everybody into those fights would be a much better plan for the future, because like I said, there is just not much to do to begin with on the map. Like after the first week, you've basically done everything that you need, minus getting the materials to make your tier 5 gear and making it heated. You can literally have all of this done more or less in the first 2 weeks, and in that state of mind, like the first 2 days of both weeks. So more opportunities to fight those Chaos Weavers would definitely at least given me something to do. But like I said, you usually get these groups of people who go chase Chaos Weavers and kill them, finish off the season or the weekly rewards, phase rewards, and then there's just nothing else for people to do. I mean, you could go fight more Chaos Weavers, but I mean, there's really no point to it unless you're going for like a certain Deviant, which we'll get into a little bit later. The Star Crown was good. I know my biggest issue with this game when I first started playing it was that I just wasn't getting enough Star Crown to make the builds, to test the builds, to see how they function out in the real world. So it felt like this time I got a lot of Star Crown with the cameras that you can interact with, or with other things that you're doing. So it was a good upgrade for Star Crown wise, for sure. The season goals were straightforward. So I mean, as always, you know, complete certain tasks, do a certain puzzles, loot certain mythical crates, whatever it might be. So same as always, it was always going to be a straightforward task of things that you needed to do. The weapons for me in this phase were actually good. I didn't feel like they were so overpowered over the other weapons that could have been brought into the scenario. So for the most part, I think they were balanced enough. I mean, at the very beginning, I remember jumping into fights against the Treant in the first week, where I was using the shotgun and I was out damaging people by 100,000 or 200,000 damage. But I don't think this was so much a matter of that weapon was that much more powerful, as those people just hadn't crafted and upgraded gear and stuff to get the side damage that they needed, or the weapon damage that they needed. I think it eventually caught up to where everyone was doing pretty much equal amounts of damage. I could be wrong there, but overall, I didn't see anybody exploding in 3rd week, 4th week creating more damage than other stuff. One thing I would say is, you know, the shotgun is useless basically in certain cases. I like this. You know, it's not like a Swiss Army knife of weapons. Sometimes that shotgun comes out if you're fighting a boss that's immune to certain damages. Like, it is just useless. Chaos Weavers, useless. So it's good to know that different weapons can coordinate and do different things for you and help you along whenever you need them to, and that it's not just a one gun does it all type thing. So weapon wise, gear wise, I thought it was great. I know the burn boots, more or less, you know, they're good for that weapon. I'm sure somebody's going to come around and find a way to make those boots great with another fire build, but for the most part it just seemed like they tied in together well, so that was thought through for this scenario kind of thing. In terms of the Anubis, the silent Anubis, I also got to test that out and run it and upgrade it and try it out. Great weapon, you know. I loved the AoE damage you could do with it. I loved the way the gloves meshed with the build itself. So, I mean, overall, I think the weapons were well thought out and put together for this scenario, and I think they will carry over into other scenarios and be very useful there as well. Next, we talk about Deviants, and in all intents and purposes, there were some Deviants that I liked from the scenario. A lot of Deviants that I find just to be absolutely useless if you're not in this scenario. But, you know, at least when I was using the shotgun, like trying to stick to the fire build scenario concept or whatnot, you know, the invincible sun was fun for ad clearing, that is. You know, whenever you had to do some of the boss fights that had lots of ads coming out, popping that invincible sun out really took care of them for you, where you could just really focus on hammering away at the boss. But overall, I still find Pyro Dino to be like miles ahead damage wise over this. In terms of the frost, like the snow sprite, I just found to be absolutely kind of useless. I think there might be people out there that have a better level snow sprite than me. I think 4-3 there, as you can see, is probably my best one. And, you know, I understand it increases the frost damage of it, but I still just find the jellyfish to be much better in terms of what you're doing. Although I could see that snow sprite being a very good alternative for a long boss fight, as it's just continuing to increase the frost damage that your gun is making. But in terms of like area clear, once again, jellyfish miles ahead. Other deviants that you could get during this phase, if you're into weapon damage, snapshot definitely was a good improvement onto weapon damage deviants. You know, whatever those builds would be, snapshot would definitely be a good alternative to something else that you're using, because you are increasing weapon damage as it takes pictures of things. But the rest of the deviants, more or less, are kind of just useless in my opinion. Of course, like the tar pudding will get you passive oil, but I don't know, I've never had trouble finding oil for my bike, even when I haven't built a base around oil fields. Just never had trouble with it. So the people who do have issues with this, you know, I guess this is a good passive oil income for you for the future. But like, once again, I mean, do I want to spend the money to bring a tar pudding out of the bag into the new scenario? Probably not. You know, the ice pot, I mean, unless there are nodes brought into other scenarios, the ice pot, I think, also kind of useless. Sure, you can make the ice cube or whatnot and explode it, but I just find it to be kind of just a non-useful thing. I mean, just as well as the Gozo Chio. Like, the Gozo Chio, what use would it be in another scenario? Unless there are mobs that are in the shadow realm of sorts that you can't damage unless you have some kind of light. The Gozo Chio, absolutely useless. So, I mean, more or less, bring some of the elements from the winter Way of Winter scenario into, you know, Manibus or these things, I could see this working out to be a pretty cool idea, but I don't think that the company is looking to do that. I'm thinking they're trying to keep the scenario split to where there's differences, and in that case, you know, these deviants outside of 2, maybe 3, I mean, absolutely are going to be of no use outside of the scenario itself. Okay, world events. Man, for me, world events were an absolute waste. After week 2, whenever you moved into the heated zone, you were crafting gear to cool you down, and all these events would start popping up. Jump to it, you jump to it, you freeze to death. Now I get it, you could have 2 sets of gear, cold and hot, for whatever you're doing, but my problem with that is content started happening so quickly that whenever you jumped into the events, you wouldn't have a chance to swap your gear over because you're already thrust into the fighting, and it takes a second to realize where was that event being held. And yeah, people have told me, you know, hit X, you can see where the events are, you can swap your gear beforehand, but in some cases, server events happen so quickly that you have to hit that button or that post inside a chat, or you're not going to be part of the event, straight up. So for me, jumping to that event, not being able to change, freezing to death twice, hoping that I'm going to get the rewards for it, just, I think this whole concept should be rethought. I get where they're going here, you know, survive the cold, survive the heat, but they made it extreme for people on average to like deal and handle this in quick, spur of the moment like situations, such as what I've explained. So, you know, find a way to fix that. Either make events happen in the cold or the hot, depending on what part of the map you're in, or, you know, find other ways. I know there's food that can keep you alive. I know that there's ways to adapt with the lantern and stuff like this, but I mean, does it have to be that extreme? I don't know. You tell me. Comment below. Towers. For me, towers were great. I thought that was actually the best part of Way of Winter. I think that was obviously the fundamental key to what they were thinking about doing. But I mean, towers for me were just the bread and butter of this whole scenario. Like, you just couldn't ask for a cooler idea. The towers gave you everything. I love that idea of making things, you know, community centralized. You know, with Manibus or the Primiverse, like literally there are only designated areas. If you don't get to those areas in time, you don't get the polluted soil, you don't get the oil, you don't get these things to like craft. I love the fact that the tower literally centralizes that. Like, you can have everything you want anywhere on the map. People complained that the Chaos Weavers were destroying their stuff. You know, whatever. That was also fine with me because of the bonuses that you were getting from having those towers set up. I mean, far and behold, like, the towers were great. Crafting buffs, access to any node that you were wanting to abstract. It was really a great thing. So actually, I would love to see that brought into other scenarios and just take away the polluted zones and the oil fields and stuff. Just like make towers a central thing. This should be a group-orientated game. Like, you should have more group activities. The way this game runs now is it's a solo idea. You're literally in game, you are running solo until you need help. And then you start begging people to come help save your base from Chaos Weavers or crap like this. I mean, just make it more group orientated to begin with. And if you want to play solo and build the tower and call for help, you know, fair be it, do it. But overall, I think the towers were great. I love it. I hope they elaborate on it. I hope they can bring it into other scenarios, actually. I just love the community concept that came with the towers. The next thing that I want to address is the recipes inside of the Way of Winter scenario. Now I understand that the company is trying to separate the scenarios and give us kind of a diverse option to jump one to the other, so we're not just doing the exact same thing over and over again. However, I do want to point out the fact that all the recipes that you had from previous scenarios did come over to Way of Winter, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to find all of these recipes that you got in Way of Winter are going to follow you to the next scenario that you take on, whether it be Manvis, Primiverse, or whatever it might be. So there is a problem here. You can't craft any of these things outside of Way of Winter unless they are making plans to include some of these pickable nodes in other maps. So for example, the Flaming Egg Tart, you don't have Spike Mato, you ain't gonna get it. It's just gonna be wasting a lot of space. I mean, it's just another long list of crap that you have to scroll through to try to find exactly which recipe you want to make. Just keeping that in mind, if they do bring other nodes, even if there's small number of nodes to the other scenarios, then these recipes will make a lot of sense. Otherwise, work at taking these out whenever you jump to scenarios that you can't even dream of crafting them in. Now, and please be careful, because remember, looking at Flaming Egg Tart, we didn't have butter. For the first like 2 weeks of the scenario that I got into, it was an amazing like gift from the gods whenever butter was brought back in. And the second was the orange cake, which is XP that came in week 3. Whatever, you don't need XP anymore. I know these are just small overlooked things that they fixed, but I mean, definitely make a consideration. If without Spike Mato, without these peppers, you're not going to be able to craft this stuff in other scenarios. And I wouldn't mind actually seeing some of these recipes follow and being able to be crafted in those scenarios. Now, one thing that might be a possibility is you could buy the seeds from the vendors, and that might be what they're moving along doing, in which that case you buy those 3 seeds per week, you multiply them, and next thing you know, you're eating flamed egg tarts. But just keep in mind, recipes are something that should be considered by the company as a cross-scenario thing for those reasons. Now, as a whole, I give this game a C+ for this scenario. I don't think it deserves anything higher. I actually wanted to give it a lower grade, but once I sat down and considered all of the mechanics, the tower, you know, they did put some effort into creating deviants. Whether or not I find them to be useful outside of this scenario or not doesn't matter. They did kind of improve the passive collection of oil, water, things along these lines. So they're addressing different outcomes, and they're putting forth the effort to make the game better. But I mean, for me, I felt this got pushed out too early, rushed, and it wasn't complete enough and tested enough to work out small little bugs or small little instances, such as not having butter or orange cakes in the game on day 1 and introducing them in week 3 whenever they're kind of useless, and we've already found other ways to go harvest butter from different sites. So C+, solid. I still love the game. Don't know that I want to jump back into a Way of Winter scenario anytime soon, but quite possibly in the future I could see myself doing it again if there's a lot of fixes and if there are some issues that are addressed to bring the interactive nature of the game more into my playing realm. Thank you guys again for coming and watching. Have a great day. See ya.